We've all held one, a coin, a bill, a piece of paper that whispers four small words, "In God we trust." But have you ever stopped and wondered, why? Why do we tie the divine to the dollar? Why does faith sit printed on something so human, so negotiable? It didn't start with America. Long before minting machines and treasuries, another kind of temple was printing belief. And it wasn't on paper. This is the story of how faith became finance, and how money learned to pray. A journey from altars to banks, from sacrifices to salaries, from gods to gold. 3,000 years before Wall Street, the richest buildings on earth weren't palaces, they were temples. In Babylon, in Egypt, in Greece, worshippers brought grain, gold and livestock as offerings to their gods, and priests became the first accountants. Temples weren't just holy, they were safe. Their walls guarded treasures from war, fire, or thieves. Even kings stored their wealth there, trusting that no one would dare rob the gods. Soon, those same priests realized something remarkable. The offerings they held could work. They began lending temple wealth to rulers and merchants, earning interest for the glory of the gods. That's how religion invented a concept we still use. Capital. Wealth that grows through faith, in both senses of the word. Because once you start believing that gold is sacred, you've already minted the first spiritual currency of humanity. And that faith came with interest. In the cradle of civilization, ancient Mesopotamia, people lived under the constant gaze of their gods, and every favor demanded repayment. The first debts recorded in history weren't between people, they were between mortals and heaven. A goat offered for rain, a jar of oil for mercy, a handful of grain for safe childbirth. Clay tablets from 3000 before Christ list these sacred obligations line by line, like invoices to eternity. To owe was not a failure, it was a virtue. You owed the gods because they had blessed you. That idea shaped language itself. The Latin credere, to believe, gave us both creed and credit. Two words, one faith. The trust that makes worlds work. Every economy since then has relied on that invisible bond, belief in value, belief in someone else's promise. But what happens when those divine debts become too heavy to bear? When salvation itself starts carrying interest? By the time of Jesus, the sacred and the commercial had fused. The temple in Jerusalem was part sanctuary, part stock exchange. Pilgrims paid temple taxes, bought animals for sacrifice, changed foreign coins for pure ones blessed by the priests. It was faith. Franchised. And Jesus couldn't stand it. He overturned the tables, scattered the coins, and cried out, "My Father's house shall not be a market." This was not just anger, it was rebellion. Against the idea that redemption could be priced, that holiness could be sold. He didn't hate money, he hated how it had crawled into the heart of belief, as if forgiveness had a price tag, and God kept receipts. He flipped the tables to remind us, salvation isn't a product, it's a promise. So the question still echoes through centuries and empires. What happens when faith itself starts printing money? Centuries later, Europe found its answer. The church began selling indulgences, slips of parchment that claimed to shorten your stay in purgatory. For the faithful, they weren't scams, they were receipts of hope. Pay here, save your soul later. It was genius and disastrous. A spiritual bond market, where the interest was eternity. The logic wasn't new, it was perfected. The faithful trusted that the church could guarantee their future, just as bankers later promised to protect wealth. Around the same period, the first paper money appeared in China under the Tang and Song dynasties. A note, stamped with the emperor's seal, promising value unseen. A miracle of faith. Secular, yet spiritual. Both systems worked, because people believed in the Pope's promise, in the emperor's seal, in words written on paper that somehow felt divine. Faith had started printing money, and money, in return, started to look like faith. But soon the power to bless value would pass from altars to thrones. Monarchs crowned themselves with holiness. The king reigns by the grace of God. Every coin stamped with a cross or a haloed portrait carried that message. To touch royal money was to touch divine authority. You didn't just spend, you participated in the sacred order of the realm. Religion gave rulers moral legitimacy, and wealth gave faith political reach. The two became inseparable. gospel and gold, marching hand in hand. When explorers carried crosses to new continents, they also carried coins, stamped with kings and saints, spreading both commerce and creed. It's no coincidence that the Spanish word for money, dinero, and for divine grace, divino, sound like they share the same root in belief. They don't, technically, but that their history rhymes. Both were born from the same idea. That value, whether sacred or material, comes from faith. But as power shifted from kings to merchants, a new kind of church emerged, one built not on prayers, but on prophets. The modern market is humanity's most successful religion. It doesn't have temples, it has towers. It doesn't need miracles, it has growth. Every trade, every loan, every swipe of a credit card rests on a single sacred truth. Trust. Trust that money holds value. Trust that tomorrow will come. Economists rarely admit it, but finance runs on belief. When people lose faith, currencies collapse. When they believe again, value resurrects. In the 17th century, when the first banks opened in Amsterdam and London, people laughed at the idea that paper could replace gold. And yet, they believed. They had to. We no longer pray for salvation. We forecast it, invest in it, trade it. But underneath, it's the same invisible pact. I believe. Therefore it's worth something. So when a new nation printed "In God We Trust" on its coins, it wasn't nostalgia for faith. It was the echo of an old habit. The phrase appeared first in 1864, during the American Civil War. In a country tearing itself apart, a pastor wrote to the treasury, "If we trust God in battle, shouldn't we trust Him on our money?" And so it began, a prayer in metal, struck amid chaos. It resurfaced in the 1950s, during another crisis. The Cold War. When the US wanted to draw a line between godless communism and faithful capitalism. In 1956, "In God We Trust" became the official national motto. A year later, it moved from coins to bills, from metal to paper, from offering to brand. Maybe it wasn't about piety at all. Maybe it was about confidence, the one thing every currency needs. Because if people stop believing, the whole system falls apart. That's why those 4 words, endure. They remind us that trust, not gold, holds everything together. It's faith, written in ink. We began with a coin that carried a prayer. But the miracle was never divine, it was human. We built temples, banks, and nations on the same invisible foundation. Trust. We believed, and belief made the world work. So maybe, "In God We Trust" isn't about heaven at all. Maybe it's about us. Because what we trust becomes real. And that's the true price and power of belief. Stay curious.